This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, don't forget to send us your PR Podcast plug. This is a way that you can promote yourself. And I joke that as PR people, we're sometimes great at promoting our clients, but horrible at promoting ourselves. We need to promote ourselves a little bit better. And I know that you do lots of things outside of your 9 to 5 that are really cool and worth talking about that you're really proud of. Now, maybe you won an award. Maybe you published a cool blog. Maybe you have this crazy TikTok channel, or you're a chef on YouTube. I don't know. Send us something cool that you've done that you're proud of as a PR podcast plug. Give us a chance to love on you a little bit, shout you out at the top of an upcoming show. Send it to me, Jody at jodyfisherpr.com, or hit me up on any of the socials, either at Jody Fisher or at the PR Podcast, and we will give you that shout out at the top of an upcoming show. Now, let's get on with our show for today. We have a fantastic guest. Tiffany Joy Murchison is CEO of TJM Co, a boutique public relations firm that's headquartered in Brooklyn, New York. Shout out Brooklyn. Leads a national team that empowers brands to flourish by exposing them to their ideal audiences through fully integrated, purpose-focused public relations and digital marketing strategies. Now, she's the author of PRY Until, and we're going to get into that book, The Small Business Owner's Guide to DIY Public Relations, with the second edition discussing managing reputation during social unrest and a pandemic that was published in 2020. Tiffany, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jody. I love that introduction, all the energy.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's exciting to have Brooklyn in the house, right? We love bringing a little Brooklyn.
Stand up, Brooklyn, stand up. I heard somebody say, matter of fact, Stephen A. Smith said recently in talking about the playoffs that the only people who care about Brooklyn is Brooklyn. Of course, he was talking about the Nets, and that everybody was focused on New York because New York and Brooklyn aren't the same. So yes, I am going to represent for Brooklyn today.
Nice. We love it. We love it. Let's talk about that book right at the top, PRY Until. Tell us what that stands for and tell us why you wrote it.
So PRY stands for Public Relations for Yourself. I wrote it unwillingly, to be honest with you. I have a really good friend and mentor, Angie Pearson. Now she's Pearson. She just got married, who challenged me, gave me 2 weeks to write the book. We were always talking about how we could help business owners do their own PR, as the industry was starting to change and shift and social media was out and all this other stuff, and to still be relevant. And she said, all right, write a book. And I was like, what? And she said, and then do a workshop for the book, and you have 2 weeks. And I could not believe that she made me do that in 2 weeks. So shout out to Angie, because that's how the first edition happened. It was an ebook at first. It had 15 or so pages. And I remember thinking to myself as I was writing or typing it out, like, dag, I do a lot. How do I condense this into something that's digestible for the small business owner? So that was the first edition. However, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit and we all watched the tragedy that was George Floyd on television, people started reaching out to me, asking me, what do I do? Do I promote my business now? Or I had an employee who had gone to work for another firm and called me back and said, Tiffany, they want us to do all this pitching and promoting, and it just doesn't feel right to me. And I said, no, it's not right. And so I decided to add to the book, since I was home with time on my hands, and tell folks that you can still promote yourself, but you have to do it in a way that is sensitive to the climate, and that it was okay to ask what you didn't know. If you had a friend that was culturally different, from a different race or religion, that you should have those open and honest conversations with them so that you could identify what may be offensive to a group that you're not familiar with. And also, what I realized is that being stuck inside for so long, I think made people realize that they needed each other and that they missed human contact. And so there's a little part in it about the personal touch to PR and sending a written card or letter or note as opposed to sending a text, or actually picking up the telephone. And so there's some of my favorite vendors in there, some stationery vendors, some folks that I've used as well, but really just how to get through managing, I would say, not even just business relationships, but just relationships in a time when we had no clue what was going to happen next.
There is a ton to unpack there, and I want to talk about it all. But let's start it in reverse. Relationships is really what PR is all about.
Absolutely.
I had a mentor, and I mention this frequently, who used to say, PR is not about this hit, it's about the next hit. It's about creating the relationship that will yield you the results that you're going for. It's not just getting the one article, but it's creating that back and forth exchange of information and building that level of trust that gets you the publicity over and over and over again. Then ultimately informs the audience in a positive way, right? What's your perspective on that?
Absolutely. So, you've heard it said, your network is your net worth. That translates past financial, right? That is, and as I said to you before we actually started, we work hard to make sure that we make the journalist job easier. Our team knows that that's what we need to do. So we try to provide any support that we can. We have conversations when we don't need them to publish anything, right? I was just talking to someone about how we used to have desk sides. And during the pandemic, another PR person, professional, a friend of mine, and I had a virtual desk side. And we invited some journalists that we knew. It was during the holidays. And we said, just come and join us, just chat. And what we did is everyone that joined, we sent them $5 Starbucks gift card and said, go get a cup of coffee on us. But it was, and we weren't pitching anything. I don't even think we talked about clients. We just had conversation, because at the end of the day, whether I'm a PR professional or a journalist or an editor, I'm a person first, right? And so that human connection, that personal touch is really important to me. I think that my first lessons, not even I think, my first lessons in PR came from my mom. My parents owned a number of bars and restaurants, and I have never seen anybody work a room like my mama. I'm telling you, my mother could talk anybody off the ledge. She could get the drunkest person to give up their keys and get in a taxi. I'm telling you, I have never seen anybody work a room like my mama. And so I was able to watch her do that, and how she knew. My mother would remember what you drank. Like every Friday, Bob's going to be here and he drinks whiskey with blah, blah, blah. Like she knew that. And so when you walked in from a long, hard day at work or a long week at work, and on a Friday, you walk into my parents' bar, my mother had a drink ready for you, right? She knew how to meet the need, and people came back because of that. And so those are my first lessons in PR, is learning how to manage those relationships and watching my mother work a room. And I have to say, I can do the same pretty good now, thanks to Miss Sharon Louise. But it's just really about the personal connections. It really is about building relationships.
It's so true. And so now, using that as the basis for this next piece of the conversation, building on what you just talked about, pitching and doing our job as PR professionals representing our clients in the face of times of crisis, whether it is pandemic or 9/11 or George Floyd or something else in there, where you put it just right. Sometimes it just feels wrong to be pitching our story that has nothing to do with what this tsunami of news and really cultural significance that's going on in the world. How do you navigate those times, and how do you advise your shop to navigate those times?
So that starts with educating our customers, right? I'm going to date myself. Sims was a clothing store on Long Island, and their commercial used to say, and I grew up on Long Island, by the way, but Sims commercial used to say, an educated consumer is our best customer. I tell my team that all the time. All I say, and I tell them that all the time. And so we start off by letting our clients know that we're going to pitch the stories, we're going to follow up, we're going to do all the work and all the heavy lifting. However, news cycles do change. And there may be times when your story gets bumped by something that the public thinks is more important, something that is a tragedy, a national, whatever it could be, right? And it could be good or bad that's impacting the news cycle, but we prepare them for that. And we say, okay, we'll come back. We had a perfect example. We pitched one of our clients, a New York City school principal, for Principal Appreciation Day. And initially, it was supposed to just be a feature on a local news station about her. She wasn't going to appear. We had given pictures and information, and they were just going to, honorably mention her. And a school shooting happened in another part of the country, which took the news, took over the news that day. But because of the relationship that we built with the journalists at that station, they called and said, hey, can you get her here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock? We'll just have her on the show. And we were like, sure. So we rearrange some schedules. We get the client there, 8 o'clock in the morning. She goes on. It's only her, all eyes on her. And before we walked out, I said to her, take your phone off mute because it's going to be ringing. A lot of people just saw you on national TV. And she said, no, it's not. And when she took her phone out of her bag, oh, yes, it was already ringing, right? And so that for us is how, we are flexible for the journalists. We advise our clients to be flexible. And we don't ever let a client interview by themselves. We always make sure one of us is present, there in person, or if it's on, virtually, we're hiding somewhere in the virtual world watching it, right? So, but we really do prepare our clients for the fact that while they are most important to them, that collectively the world may be focusing on something else at any given time.
Tons of wisdom in what you just said, and full endorsement as well. Let's talk about the subject of the book and sort of some of the lessons you write about in there. PR for yourself, and specifically aimed at small businesses or maybe people who are getting started in PR.
Yes.
Running right past the, frequent misconceptions that people have about PR, how can someone who maybe isn't at a place in their lives where they can hire a PR agency to do some of the work for them, how can people get started in leveraging some of what we do for them on their own? What are some of the first steps a small business can take?
Well, first we tell them to decide how much time they actually have to put towards this. Because as you and I both know, Jody, PR is a full-time job. And I don't ever advise anyone to do so much of that they neglect whatever it is that they should be doing. If they're a baker and they should be baking, if they're a seamstress and they should be sewing, right? So, and it's real easy to get caught up in the weeds. So first of all, decide how much time you actually have to dedicate to this. And then that can help you choose the channels that work best for you, whether you want to focus more on the digital side of things or whether you actually have an opportunity to reach out to local journalists. So that's the first thing. The other thing is we tell them to set goals, SMART goals, that are based on what their business goals are. So in the book, we use an example of a coffee shop. Maybe this coffee shop wants to increase their sales after the morning rush, right? So between 9 and 11 in the morning, we need to increase our sales. Okay, well, where can you do that and how can you do that? And think about the people who maybe go to work later in the afternoon. What types of jobs do they have? And where are they getting their news from? Are they on Instagram? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they reading the AM Metro, right? Are they reading the local paper? What's happening? And then once you set that goal, you can identify where you need to be and who you need to be talking to and what stories you need to tell them. In the book, folks get a glimpse of a methodology that I put together. We call it the CLIP content strategy. And CLIP because we use a paper clip as a symbol. It holds on to things, right? And so call to action being the very first thing you want to consider but the very last thing you want to say or post. So that's the C. The L is lifestyle content, and that's the content that tells people who you are and gains their trust. So, hey, I'm Tiffany. I own a PR agency. I'm a mom. I'm a dog lover. All the things that give folks a reason to connect with you on a personal level. I use Oprah as a example. If Oprah says go buy a pair of socks, we all go run out and buy the socks. We might not know anything about the sock manufacturer or anything else, but we all go run and buy these darn socks because Auntie Oprah said go buy the socks. Why is that? Well, it's because we think we know her business, even though she's very strategic in what she tells. To someone who is not trained like we are, they think Oprah just tells it all. And we can relate to that. We know her struggles, her challenges, we watch her successes, and that builds trust. So we trust her. And so on a very small scale, we teach our clients and in reading the book, how to gain trust through what we call lifestyle content. The next thing we say is then you go to your industry relevant content, the things that say why you are good at what you do. So if it's a coffee shop, I'm going to post my testimonials where clients are saying or customers are saying, this is some good coffee, or the service is really great, or whatever the case may be. And then the P is either positioning or entertaining, depending upon where you are. During the pandemic, positioning content would have been if I rode past your business and I saw a Black Lives Matter sign in the window. To me, that means you took a position on something that was also near and dear to me. And I would want to support you in that, right? And so once you do all of that, you come back around to your call to action, and then you ask the audience to do what you want them to do. And that's, hey, come to my coffee shop. We're having something special at 11 a.m. on Tuesdays, right? And so there's a glimpse of that in the book to tell people this is how you get started, and at least giving a framework for you to think about what you should be saying and how you should be saying it.
It's a great point that you need to build a relationship before you can sell or ask somebody for something of theirs, right? You have to either give them something, whether it's a product or a service or a downloadable piece of content or whatever that thing is, right? But you have to give of yourself first.
Absolutely.
Before you can ask someone to give to you. And that, going back to what we talked about, that is the development of a relationship, the development of trust, and the development of something that will far exceed a singular transaction.
Absolutely. People remember how you make them feel. They might not remember what you said or what you did, but they absolutely will always connect to how they felt in that moment. And that's really what PR is about, is getting folks to feel a way in the moment that drives them to a behavior that, and I say it's a quid pro quo, right? It's positive for both you and them. It should be the outcome.
I know that similar to myself, that nonprofits are close to your heart, and I believe that you have some nonprofit clients, right?
Absolutely.
And you and I both know, and I joke, but it is the truth, that a nonprofit needs to make every dollar dance like it's 100. And the work that they do, for the most part, is essential, absolutely essential work that they do. It's selfless, it's critical. How do you go about helping articulate nonprofits, the work that they do, the mission that they fulfill? How do you make that translation to people who may not even be familiar with the fact that a particular nonprofit exists?
So one of the things that we drive home with our nonprofit clients is data. And that's because in the beginning, when you're just starting out, there's a feel-good story to tell, right? And so that story will work for 2 or 3 years, maybe. But after a while, folks want to know, they want to be able to qualify and quantify what you've actually done. So we encourage our nonprofit clients to really start to keep track of their successes so that we can give a journalist some really good meat and potatoes of a story, right? So if you've had 500 people come through your door for college readiness, then we want to be able to say to the journalist without any doubt that 496 of them went on to college, right? So we really tell nonprofits that data is essential to what they do, and to not get so lost in the feel good that you don't do the business. So, I have a lot of experience in the nonprofit space, both on board management and serving on board. So that's the advice that we give. We come at it from a risk averse perspective also. So we kind of check and make sure that they're not left open to any reputation crises, because one wrong story can destroy a small nonprofit. So, for example, we had a situation we took on a nonprofit, and they were feeding moms and dads, teen parents, and they had young women in the community, like the aunties and the grandmas, cooking and feeding these young moms and dads. And my risk management brain said, wait a minute, what happens if a kid gets sick? They had never thought about that. And so what we were able to do was take that challenge. At the time, New York City had a program with NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, where they were letting people or helping people get their food handlers licensing and helping them become caterers. So we put now they're called community cooks. We put their community cooks through that program in a partnership with NYCHA. And once they had their food handlers license, they were able to then get special event insurance that would cover for the 6 weeks that they provided this food in case something happened. And not only did the nonprofit, begin to still have their community cooks, but it was a whole new program for them that was holistic, not just the teen moms and dads and their children, but now going back to the grandmas and the aunties in the community. And so it really gave them an even more holistic approach to the work that they did. So we actually really do try to look for opportunities for any type of reputation crisis that we can mitigate. And then if we find them, we try to turn them into positives as opposed to negatives. But we really focus on them with the data and telling the crux of the story.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the way you put it that, and I've been there as well with my nonprofit clients, the annual fundraising event, fill in the blank, is good for 2 or 3 years. And then it's like, yeah, where's my money going?
Right.
What do you guys actually do?
Right. Especially in this climate where everybody's counting every dollar.
Counting every dollar. Yeah. And counting it before they make that donation.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Tiffany, this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate you sharing your perspectives here. I've learned a thing or two, that's for sure. And so I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're not done yet. We're not getting rid of you yet because we're going to segue now into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast.
All right,
this is where we steal a page from This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. I know we're going to get some Brooklyn flavor in the house. So Tiffany Joy Murchison, let's go into our rapid fire question with rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
MSNBC. Morning Joe.
Love the Morning Joe. Rapid fire question number 2. What's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Love those photos, right? Love the selfies. Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Matcha.
Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food?
Oh God. Sweet green.
Good one. Good one. You got a local in Brooklyn. What neighborhood are you in Brooklyn?
My office is in Fort Greene, so there's one a couple of blocks away.
I love it. I love it. And rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
A FBI SWAT officer.
Never heard that one before. Get out of town.
I actually posted that really. I think my next career I'll be an FBI SWAT officer. And everybody was like, what? So I did almost join the FBI some years ago. I had a boss whose husband was in law enforcement and they were looking for diverse FBI agents and more Black women. And the only reason why I did not go through with it completely is because Sharon Louise was having a whole heart attack about her daughter becoming an FBI agent.
I was going to say, maybe there's something we didn't learn about you on this show. Having an inclination to be in law enforcement. That's awesome. I love it. What a great story. Well, Tiffany, this has been a terrific conversation. Like I said, please let people know how they can find you online.
We are everywhere. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, even now too, at TJM Co. Everything is TJMANDCO. Or you can find me as Ms. Tiffany Joy Publicist. Our website is the same, TJM Co. And I'm usually around the neighborhood somewhere. So you may see me. Everybody knows me by my glasses. I have on different glasses every couple of days. So if you see me in my spectacles looking like Edna Mode, be sure to say hi.
Sounds good, Tiffany. We absolutely will. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at the PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Apple. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.